Hey Derek, it's Paul. So, watch Doom. And I took notes. Admittedly, it is just a single page and mostly a nitpick bitch list. Because I loved it. It wasn't Doom. It wasn't Doom. It's not Doom like the games. You explained that. I almost think that they kind of half-ass rushed it. It's something that was designed to be another movie, but because Doom 3 was released the year before, Doom 3 was released in 2004, Doom, the movie with The Rock and Carl Urban, was 2005. I think there might be a little bit of a rush job on some minor rewrites and script work to make it Doom. That's my thought. Because that would kind of make sense. And what I read out based on Doom 3, that would also make sense. But yeah, and I don't have a ton of experience with Doom myself. I didn't have the shareware. The shareware version was there, but I didn't play that until our video series that we did on Doom. It was always kind of part of the milieu, but not something that I particularly saw it. And if you want more about that, and if anybody watching this wants more about that, go watch our Doom playlist. It's how we got our tagline of "It's nifty, damn it." That's mine. So, Doom the movie. Now, out of the gate, there's one thing that kind of stuck out at me. The code that Carmike has. 6627. Why not make it 6628? The reason why I say that is I wrote them down here. If it was since it was 6627, yes, that's 3 cubed. You can add those together and get 6. But it's a little bit easier to take 2 from 8 and call it 666. Hey, there's your hell reference, everybody. But like I said, this is nitpick bullshit. Most of this is nitpick bullshit. Opening scene with The Rock, when we finally see him. We were both Navy. His dialogue felt really wrong to me because Marines, being Department of the Navy, do the same type of callbacks, and they say aye aye, which comes back around when The Rock finally going is talking to the kid. I need soldiers. Don't you mean Marines? Because you're a Marine. That kind of makes sense to me. Here, have a Marine. That I need Marines. If you were Army, I need soldiers. If you're Navy or in a gay porn, I need seamen. But, or specifically, I need semen samples. Right, buddy? Now, there were a couple of things there's one thing here that I did catch that was really awesome. After they activate the nano wall and have the guy who ripped his fucking ear off as a demon stuck in the wall. That's one hell of a way to explain Bethesda glitches, everybody. They actually, in the background, from that point on, whenever we see it, it's still twitching and moving. It's still fucking alive until it gets shot in the head. So that's actually kind of cool. I liked that. Now, when I first started to watch this, I got to where I can't remember the guy's actual last name, but he says, "Call me Pinky." I didn't grow up playing Doom. I played it with you. In what fucking universe does the dude in the wheelchair, or the monster he turns into, resemble the gigantic 8-foot hulks of fuck you that are pinkies? Now, let's see. Oh, the other thing that kind of drove me nuts here was when they introduced the BFG. Not when we finally see it, and not when The Rock goes big fucking gun. No. When they show it on the screen, and the schematics and all of that, I swear to God, someone gave the Steadicam operator fucking meth. Go back and watch that scene. Go back and watch just that scene. The Steadicam operator, because it's obviously a Steadicam. There's the slight wobble of a Steadicam bounce. If you know what you're looking for, I do. I know you do too, Derek. There's that slight telltale wobble that says, this is shot on a Steadicam. And the motherfucker is like running all over the place. Hey, I'm gonna scan the whole fucking room. Dude, switch to decaf. Fucking hell. And the pills for the kid, which only get mentioned twice. Once when Portman hands them to the kid, and once when, are you fucking high? Well, the military does have not the best record when it comes to drugging units that are in spec war operations, to the point of giving Ritalin and Adderall if they're going to be out for a long period of time for off-label usage, shall we say. And the military's admitted to that one. So, Portman being the guy holding on to the supply for the unit, but having to keep it quiet, it kind of makes sense, because Portman is the king sleaze. But goddamn, did I love him. A couple of good, but there were some really good lines. When Dr. Judge Jones Bones Dread, did I call him Jones? Dr. Judge Bones Dread Reaper his code name's Reaper. His last name's Grimm. Ha 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 ha. You know, when Reaper is talking to his sister and they're talking about the 24th chromosome, which in normal humans, the 24th chromosome means Down syndrome. He mentions the word bioengineered. The single most beautiful comeback line ever from anyone was delivered by his sister. That's a big word for I actually wrote it down verbatim. That's a long word for a Marine. Oh. Yes. Let's see. What else do I got going on here? I'll come back to that line. That one's a big one. But bioengineered, that's kind of an issue I have with everything in horror. Every horror movie ever. Now, I will admit it took me a while to learn this trick, but once I did, it's what I do every fucking time. If all you have is a flashlight, and you have a moderate-sized room that you have to light up with just a flashlight, you want to point that flashlight at the fucking ceiling and hold it like what the British call it, a torch. You know why? Because it's going to light up the damn ceiling, and the damn ceiling is going to light up the rest of the room, and you're going to be able to see. Yes, it may not be as focused as a beam as pointing it directly at something, but you point it at the fucking ceiling, and it works. And here's the other thing. Lights throughout most of the base are operative. We see that throughout most of the movie. Why don't they use them? Save the battery for the sections when you're in the sewer. so that Goat doesn't get hit by the brown demon, because he'll be able to see it coming using his flashlight. Granted, there I go using logic in an action horror. And the only other thing that I had with fridge logic was, why on earth, when they locked down the containment so that there were the 6 people, why in the flaming fuck didn't they immediately evac everyone else? That way there's no one there. It's done. You evac all of the civs, you send in the badasses figure it out, contain, clear, deal with that, and you have no more than maybe 2 or 3 extra personnel in order to work with the Marines showing up. And the instant, let's say, because Goat went first, and then Mac, in that order. I would say as soon as Mac goes down, my ass would have been calling reinforcements in, because it just took down 2 of the RRTS, who are supposedly the most badass of badasses who ever badassed badassery. Badass. Holy shit, this took down 2. We're down a quarter of our team. Time to call for some support. But again, that's logic. That's logic in movies, and again, this is all nitpick. I loved this. I'm nitpicking. I am nitpicking. These are the tiniest of fucking nits that I can pick. I loved this movie. It was fantastic, and I'm sorry I hadn't watched it before. Overall, the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. And the goddamn soundtrack, and if you want the biggest clue as to how that soundtrack just... Don't listen to the soundtrack in the first person section. No. That is supposed to be badass. That has to be badass. That is mandatory to be badass. No. When they're exiting the helicopter in front of the elevator, when they do that badass walk up to the fucking Mighty Ducks V formation poster shot with the rock front and forward, yeah. Oh yeah. The music that is under there, because you hear that, and you just hear the rotors thumping, and you hear this just roaring, angry, beautiful, hard rock crunching through it all. It's like, oh, yeah, fuck some shit up. And then it slows down. And yes, the movie is very slow. But that's because it's an action horror. Actually, no, it's more of a horror action. Aliens is an action horror. This was a horror action. Horror gets away with being a lot slower than a normal action movie. And it's designed to be slower versus an action movie. So an action horror is going to take more of the pacing of an action movie than a horror movie. Horror you need to let build. So if this was more appropriately a horror action movie, then the slow bits don't bug me as much. And that's what I really thought of this as. I thought of it as a horror action. Because they did beautiful work. We barely saw the monsters for the first while, and once we did see them, they're still kind of this eldritch abomination of what the fuckery. And then the Pinky Demon. And then Pinky. Which, if it wasn't Pinky, if it wasn't supposed to be the Pinky Demon from the game, he could have said, just call me Fring, and I would have been happy, because you know what? That son of a bitch was as annoying as the fucking Fring. That fucking flame from all the fucking... Ooh. But, honest to God, I loved this movie. You have been right the whole time. And I never doubted it. I just never watched it. I knew it was out there. I knew you owned it. I knew it was out there to be watched. I just never had. Following on that kind of theme of just never having watched a movie, I'm going to go with a movie that I've never watched. For my pick. I'm going to go with a movie I never watched. It's actually the first of a trilogy. And everyone knows the third movie in the trilogy. Everyone knows it. You see the infamous stand down scene, and you know it. Or you hear that and you know the movie. You know the third movie. You know exactly what that movie is. It's The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. It's actually movie 3 in a trilogy. The Man with No Name trilogy. That starts all the way back in a movie that was first released into Italy in 1964 and then released in the United States in 1967. A Fistful of Dollars. Now, I've never seen it. I know it's the introduction of the spaghetti western as a genre. It's what started it. I know Sergio Leone. I know his work. I've seen other things that he's done with Clint Eastwood. I've just never seen A Fistful of Dollars or A Few Dollars More. I've seen Good, Bad, the Ugly. I love Good, Bad, the Ugly. Good, Bad, the Ugly is great. But I want to see Fistful of Dollars. And apparently you actually grew up on spaghetti westerns yourself, so I didn't know that. It's chatting back and forth off screen, but I didn't know you grew up on spaghetti westerns. I grew up on more of the kind of the tail end of the spaghetti westerns, or the Ford westerns, the pre-spaghetti, before Leone took over. So things like The Magnificent Seven and those grand masterpieces like that. So seeing the birth of the spaghetti western, it's going to be interesting for me. But, so, our next movie is Fistful of Dollars. And I think that's everything. Doom rocks. It's just a monkey. And call me Pinky. Okay, brain.